Monday. Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. Got Eric Naleen, got Ian Boyd, got national champion Drew Kelson. We're here. We got plenty to talk about. We got the playoffs. We got the portal. We got maybe some awards to talk about. Lots of different things going on with Texas football. So make sure you're locked in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, as always, head to InsideTexas.com. You can sign up, and now is a great time to get involved with Inside Texas because the portal is open. And even though a team like Texas may not see a ton of defections until their season's over, Eric, we've seen the Longhorns lose a couple guys at the bottom end of the roster and also start showing some interest in some guys around college football who have jumped in the portal.
Yeah, it's always a sad day. To bring in new players, you have to have room. It's just the modern life cycle of roster management. It's going to happen. You got to lose guys to bring in guys. And obviously it's going to happen more frequently with the players that aren't seeing much playing time. So, they're not going to lose a contributor. They still have not lost a player that they were actively trying to keep, as far as I know. But yeah, unfortunate they lost a couple guys today. Darian Gillette was a big time recruit. I always thought he was more of a project. Getting hurt his senior year didn't help his development one bit. Aaron Bryant just wrote an article about how they just did a poor job of recruiting the position for the last 3 years. They finally did their best to make up for it this past cycle. I think that's going to be huge, but they'll have to go big in the portal. Yeah, it's a sad day when guys leave, but you've got to make room for the imports, and so that's what today is all about. We hope all those guys go finding good homes.
We've got notes over on Inside Texas. Eric, you had stuff. Charlie and Justin have some intel over on Inside Texas on what they're looking for. We'll try to keep the names on there and encourage people to go there. But as far as positions go, feels like wide receiver, defensive tackle, maybe specialist are three off the top of the head. Where else might they look?
Oh man, they're always looking to upgrade the roster. It doesn't really matter to them position wise. They'll take anybody that improves the roster. So there's some talk they could even take an edge. Well, edge is already pretty stacked. But defensive tackle is by far the biggest need. They knew that this time last year that they were going to lose a lot. They're going to lose 4. They're going to take probably 3. They might take 4, but I think 3 right now is the number for portal. That to me is going to determine whether or not they're successful this portal window. They always take a wide receiver. They always like to stock up on DBs because they want to keep that marriage of pass rush and coverage intact. They're going to be active running back. First time they'll probably look at a running back since Keelan Robinson. Offensive line is a position that we haven't seen them target in the past. They've switched some of their approach the way NIL works now versus high school recruiting. So, there's a lot to keep track of. We've got it all nice and organized for you on Inside Texas, and it's really one of my favorite times of the year because it's going to give us a very good idea of how good this team is going to be next year. This past portal season, they absolutely killed it, and we knew that they were going to be good. We thought it might be a rebuilding year, and then they absolutely murdered the portal, and they did a great job with retention. And so here we are. And so if they do that again, we'll be optimistic once again.
Drew, trying to see, looking at the portal, I know different era now with the portal and adding players where you look at someone like A.D. Mitchell, who became a fan favorite really quickly. And I like that he had the neutral hat on Saturday saying, I'm just rooting for good offense, which I thought was well played by the former Bulldog and former Longhorn. But when you think of just the process of going through the portal, maybe from a player's perspective, what might the players add when you're trying to find out, maybe if a guy fits onto your team or not?
It really depends on what someone's looking for. When you leave or go into the portal, is it playing time? Is it development? Is it culture? How many years do you have left? All these guys have different situations and scenarios. Some guys are like, Darian. Some guys are experiencing injury issues or have a history of injury that they just haven't been able to crack the portal, and maybe a fresh start is there. I do think anyone who's going to be staying with the roster, specifically the Texas roster, you know who the core guys, at least the team should know who the core guys who are going to be there going into the next season. This is a time of year as well where you kind of see the leadership of some of those guys begin to take form. Not that the seniors or the ones that are leaving, not that they get more quiet or they take a step back, but I think everyone starts kind of seeing, the process of transitioning leadership also means you have to have a voice, and also means you're going to be involved in this portal process, in the portal recruiting process. And yeah, as much as Sark leans on culture, as much as he speaks to that, and his team echoes that in all of their interviews, I'm sure culture and fit are going to be really front and center. Talent is a given. You understand that the talent's going to be there. Otherwise, those conversations wouldn't be taking place. But the culture is going to be a huge part. Who can come in, wants to be a part of Texas. They're not fishing to see if Texas is a fit. They want to figure out what Texas has, and they want to be a part of it. And so you just want someone running to you and not running away from something else.
That's
As we
wisdom
go,
right there.
Go ahead, Ian.
That's just wisdom right there for all different things in life.
Yep.
Can't disagree with that. Everybody, your bet cashed. If you were waiting on Williams David to talk about defensive tackle, not only is it the biggest need, it's the most important in football. Got to go with this one then. Is there any reason to go after Jaheim Otis? I know he took a lot of flack maybe on the boards and maybe on social media for giving up without quotes, giving up with quotes. It feels like someone they may kick the tires on, at least.
Yeah, he went in October 7th, I think. And yeah, that's it can be both. It can be both that you put a very big priority on culture, and also that you will reach for guys that are more scarce. The reason the priority is on defensive tackles is because there's not a lot of them. That's kind of been the problem with Texas recruiting the last couple of years. You have to put a lot of resources towards securing them. And so, yeah, so first of all, Brett Nelson is on Inside Texas all day long, and he knows that probably one of my first 2 or 3 posts in the moderator only thread was about Jaheim Otis. So I know you saw that, my boy. Yeah, of course they're going to take a look at him. If there's a good player in the portal, just rest assured they're already looking at him. But they've been looking at Jaheim Otis for months. They've had time. Like I said, he went in early October. So yeah, we know he's much more on the board than say Bear Alexander at USC.
Ian, do they need to look at like fits for the, how they have maybe a traditional 3 technique at the nose and a traditional nose, maybe playing more 3 technique, or do they just need to start throwing numbers at it, in your opinion?
Numbers to a certain extent. I think Kenny Baker just proved this last year that if you just throw some numbers at him, he can coach up some of the technique. I think that's probably a strength that he offers, is just the ability to make the most of players he can get if they're coachable. Because he's more of a technician. He was in the NFL. He's a little more detailed than maybe some other D-line coaches that Texas has had. So, beggars can't be choosers. Right now for next year, they have how many guys that we know can play starter snaps at defensive tackle?
None.
Right? None, right.
Yeah. So Jaheim Otis, I think they definitely need a guy like that. Maybe not him exactly, but somebody that can take up a lot of space like him. He's 6'5", 230 pounds or whatever. But they like the 2 gappers or the space eaters, and they also need the guys that can penetrate. So 3 good ones though, that's what they're looking for. They'll get 3 good ones. Will they get a great one is the question.
Ian, what do you call it? Gap and a half? Isn't that what PK tries to do?
Yeah, they definitely do some of that. They do some of that. Eric was noticing live. They were doing some of that with Ethan Burke on a long run by Trevor Etienne, where he started outside. He tried to go back inside. And didn't work out so great. I don't think it was Burke's fault. There were some other issues that I don't know if we'll get into today. But yeah, they like to do things that way. They teach a lot of different stuff. Those defensive tackles, if you look at the stats of the defensive tackles the last few years for Texas or Georgia, not a lot of stats, not a lot of counting stats, not a lot of obvious production, but the NFL recognizes it and the NFL snatches them up. So
what about two Loles and an Otis would be a big win to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And I think that's doable.
Remember the other thing, I mean, is Savea expected back? Because he didn't play more than 4 games.
I doubt it.
I've heard differing things on him. I had a source that didn't think he would be back, but he has eligibility. So I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to speak out of turn. He's not in the portal yet, and he hasn't played all this year, much this year. So, if he was going to leave, you'd think he'd be going to the portal today, tomorrow, soon. If he's not in the portal in the next week or so, I would just assume he'll be back. He's kind of small. I was surprised to see, him standing next to some of the other defensive tackles. He looked more like an edge, like a bigger edge.
Yeah.
We'll go over this one. Fan of Bo Davis, always will be. Coach Baker's done a great job with the DT position and clear recruiting DTs. Got to get you back on reading Inside Texas, Williams, David, because Eric just basically posted something like this about how Kenny Baker is making sure he's stocking the room well. And, I know people may think that, you got 2 fifth-year seniors who have had a lot of coaching. We're seeing play, I feel like, Drew, from Collins and Broughton. I mean, in this A&M game, especially being evidence of that we haven't seen from them, throughout their career. And that's going to help not just Kenny Baker on the recruiting trail, as we saw him land Justice Terry and Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, but also helping them on the portal trail and helping get Texas some depth and some impact players at that position.
I think this year, and really starting with the DT position, we got to experience the value of having a surplus of depth. And I mean actual depth where if someone gets hurt, they can step in and be able to not have a drop-off. Depth where if someone is not performing well, or if someone falls through, you still have more than enough players to backfill. We experienced that from the DT position this year. If you have to just grade the execution of how the portal was leveraged at that position this year, combining that with Kenny Baker coming in as a first-year coach at Texas and getting the most out of those guys with the depth, I think this position group, outperformed any other when it comes to where we reloaded. I'm sure our receivers would like to say something about that, but I think the offensive side of the ball, in and of itself, I have to tip my cap to the DTs in the way that room was anchored. Because everywhere else, we kind of got scarce, got thin. The DB, we were on the edge with some real, if we had one more injury at DB, we could have been on the edge at certain times this season. So we got to stack depth, quality depth. I think that is, we need the surplus. We saw the season went. So I would say I've definitely tipped my cap to the DT room, Kenny Baker, and everything they've done there, because that was the room that I think experienced the most success out of anyone leveraging the portal, recruiting, and everything this season.
I'm trying to make sure if there might be a little bit of breaking news. Not quite yet, but we'll get to that later.
Now you're going to get these guys excited. The breaking news can only mean good recruiting information to them, and that's it, Joe. You got to manage expectations.
It's about a postseason honor, so we'll leave it at that. Get to this one: Casey Concepcion or Micah Hudson.
Neither.
I don't have any interest in Micah Hudson. Concepcion, I feel like, isn't he linked to his brother? Didn't his brother just commit to K-State or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to K-State. They're not going to strike while the iron's hot and go to K-State. No, I don't think that. I haven't heard Concepcion's name, and Micah Hudson's not going to happen. Chris Singleton. Chris Singleton. Eric Singleton. I think Chris Singleton played for the Astros years ago. Eric Singleton is definitely a name for Texas fans. And I know that everybody's talking about how he doesn't have a Texas visit lined up yet. Who cares, man? This is the portal era. Go get your number, and your agent's going to take it from there. So don't worry about that. We'll see. Texas definitely has interest in Singleton. They're kicking the tires for sure.
Hey, John Singleton. That's who you're thinking of. Big the first baseman who was either home run or
I would never. I can't. No. I think there was another one. I'll waste my own time with that later.
Anything on? We've had a lot of comments on kicker. I feel like they'll search for kicker and punter before I get to these super chats. Kicker and punter feel like they'll look there in the portal after the year Kern, and Auburn's probably going to move on, I believe. Either try to go pro and something other in sports. Look for kicker or punter in the portal.
Yeah, I think both are possibilities. If they were really confident in Will Stone, we probably would have seen Will Stone throughout this year. And then, punter, that's a possibility. There's been some punters that have expressed interest in Texas already. And I think, they're going to have to look at that avenue unless, Curran just is, his play was affected by his injury. Then, maybe they'll stick with him. But they're going to have to play much more, defense and field position next year, because I don't think the defense is going to be quite as good. So field position is going to be even more important. Hopefully they can find a guy with a big leg. But like I said, there have been punters that have showed interest.
I had that
Brett,
preseason.
go ahead.
Preseason, I had punter as a top 5 need, and they just
they weren't in the market for it. They had people showing interest last year. They just weren't in the market for it. Go ahead, Joe. What you got?
I was going to say, Brett and Eric, we'll get to y'all super chats, but first, real quick, one advertisement. We'll go to LC for that.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Thank you, LC. We'll go to this one. Evening, fellas. Appreciate all y'all do. Read yesterday that Kenny Baker gave Justice Terry his very first offer way back when he was coaching at Western Kentucky. Anyone heard that or can confirm? I had forgotten that Justice Terry kind of went viral as a large 8th grader. But I don't know if this is the case. I wouldn't doubt this because Manchester is about 2 hours south of where Kenny Baker's from. It's kind of right in his not necessarily his hometown, but an area he's very familiar with, having worked at Gardner Webb and UT Chattanooga, Western Kentucky, all that area. In some of these recruitments where there's a lot of different factors, you may overlook the personal relationship, but hey, Kenny Baker had to check all the boxes in this recruitment that he could possibly do. And it feels like maybe going back on that relationship, Eric, he did that and helped Texas get across the line for that signature.
Yeah. Oh man, I want to try to play along, but that was an institutional recruitment. They just beat Georgia for him, and Kenny Baker did his job. I think he overcame some of the negative recruiting staffs had over him because Collins and Broughton had career years. But I mean, Georgia offered the kid when he was in 8th grade. They'd had him on campus a million times. He'd been committed. That was just a modern day recruiting win that would not have happened at any other time period, at least just for Texas. Now, maybe Alabama's done that a million times. Auburn's done that before. LSU's done that before. Miami's done that before, but Texas hadn't really won these type of recruitments. And now they can. But Kenny Baker, yeah, look, he's done a good job, but Justice Terry, that's a whole different type of recruitment.
Anything else on portal? We encourage people to go check out Inside Texas. We got updates there. Charlie, Justin, Eric, all get involved on the portal updates. Anything else y'all want to touch on, whether it's portal or recruiting, before we start talking maybe a little about this playoff matchup?
I'm waiting for the flood of check this guy out texts from Eric that'll come in the next week or two, and then we'll have more opinions, I'm sure.
Yeah, I usually have Ian check the names that we're hearing. And that way, if it does go Texas's way, that we're all well versed on what he brings to the table, we can all kind of tie in with our strengths of how we report. So that's always fun. My favorite thing this time of year, nothing beats a great screen cap or a text message. I don't care what time it comes. This is truly one of the funnest times of the year. It can be tiring and stressful, but it's a lot of fun.
Let's move on to the playoff, and let's look way ahead. Ian, I'm throwing this one your way. How would Texas match up with the Oregon Ducks?
Not great. I mean, Texas is a good team, so they have a chance against anybody in the field, right? But Oregon's not a team that you'd be like super excited to play, I don't think. They have a good line. They can get pressure without blitzing. I wonder what Banks' status is. I think maybe we have a question in the queue. Bank status matters for games like that where you play like a Matayo Uangalele. Gabriel is proven to be a little tricky little fellow against Texas. They have good receivers. They have a run game. They're a very balanced team. Dan Lanning is clever. Defensive mind to match against Sark. Former Texas GA Will Stein in the offense. It wouldn't be like the team that I'd be most eager to play. Maybe before
they're not guaranteed to beat Tennessee or Ohio State either, though.
Yeah, sure.
I'm with Ian though. But I mean, just as far as path goes, I mean, we already have a path that we'd all supposed to consider favorable. Arizona State looked crazy the other day, so not something to overlook. But from the standpoint of Oregon, you have to know who you are on offense if you're going to face them. Because if you have too many wasted drives where you just don't really get going or don't know what your identity is, or too many wasted plays, you can look up and be down 2 scores playing catch up, and that's exactly where Oregon wants you. That's when I think Dylan Gabriel even gets more loose. He can do some things that with his feet and just creative, and I mean they're really good with the lead. So we know who we are. It's a matter of, can we identify or figure out or be something a little bit different on the offensive side of the ball that allows us to move consistently with confidence throughout the playoffs. And that means that's after people have had film on us, maybe from previous games, and to see if we've changed anything or tweaked anything. So I'm with you, Ian. Oregon is not my favorite team to be up against, but I'm all for it. I want that matchup. I mean, at the end of the day, got to go through somebody to get there. Why not them?
You know who they're similar to is Texas, because they have a lot of misdirection in the offense. They have an absolute stud left tackle that can get out and move, Josh Connerly. They have speed at receiver. They have guys like Sark would want, like Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. So I mean, I don't want to be. What's that?
I was like, who's that receiver you're talking about again?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, he's been pretty good. Trayshawn Holden has been pretty good too. They have tight ends that can catch. They're very similar to Texas. I think they're maybe a little more complete right now. We'll see if Texas can get healthy. Texas has major injuries to examine going into this next game with Kelvin Banks and Isaiah Bond. So Oregon.
I guess
Oregon.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was about to say, I guess that's as good a time as any to get y'all's thoughts on the path. And Drew, you talked about that. You know, to get to Oregon, you have to make it to the semifinals. What do you think about Texas' path? Obviously, the Clemson matchup in the first round, and you get Arizona State in Atlanta if you win that game. Just kind of curious what you think about where the Texas side of the bracket, I guess to say.
I mean, first of all, on paper, I think the whole world is saying, hey, it's a great path. Between us and Penn State, I think that's been the national consensus. But I think we've been watching this team all year, and everyone on here has been watching this team all year. Either of these games could be close and too close for comfort, regardless of the talent. It can be. I have not seen us offensively just pull away from anybody. First half, second half. I mean, we keep it. We've even had games where I consider us comfortable. I'm not even stressed out about whether we'll win or not. That includes the A&M game. But we need to be able to put up points. We need to be able to find those scores. I don't know what that's going to look like. So Do I feel great about Clemson? Yes. Clemson is a team that barely made it. What they do well on offense. I feel really great about our defense giving us more than enough opportunities on offense to be able to win that game at home at DKR. Arizona State, I don't care what opponent you want to talk about. The way that they played against Iowa State and the way that their quarterback moves, the way that their receivers step up, the way that they fly around on defense, the way that their running back gets downhill and plays physical, and they're a team that you're going to have to go earn it. And I feel like our defense will be just fine. I feel that way about everyone, but they seem like a team similar to Oregon for me. Regardless of talent, when you're confident and you know what you're doing offensively, schematically, you can find those margins. You can find that leverage, just those areas and those opportunities. And these guys play 4 quarters, whether they have a lead or they're behind. It's more like Big 12 play, where it's not just going to slow down and get to a point where we're hoping we can run clock, or they're hoping they can run clock. They are the true all gas, no brakes. And I just imagine sitting at home, waiting to play in Atlanta. I mean, which I guess can be hopefully slightly helpful, more of a corporate location. Not that there will be a crowd advantage, but there'll just be an energy neutrality that we don't have to fight against at best. But do not sleep on Arizona State. Really, that's primarily because of what have we seen from our offense to just know, as our defense is getting stops, as our defense is putting us in position to win, that our offense can respond consistently against a team like Arizona State, who we know intends to play 4 quarters and score as much as possible, with all hands on deck.
One thing about this side of the bracket, or at least Texas path, that stands out to me is I feel like you could make an argument that Clemson and Arizona State, and maybe even the other teams, Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, they got larger chips on their shoulder. And that's not to say that Texas may or doesn't have one, but Clemson's probably in there thinking, oh, people don't think that we should be here because we want to down ACC, and we only got in because we won the league and we're number 12. And Arizona State, that team definitely has a chip on its shoulder, picked last to win the Big 12, or picked to be last in the Big 12 to winning it under a head coach who's about a year or two older than me. There's some motivated teams on this side of the bracket, and I feel like, not to say Texas isn't motivated, but there may be some added motivation for those other teams on that end. Trying to think of anything else. What about do you think any other team, Ian, has – what do you think about other teams' paths? Who may have an easier one?
I think Penn State has the easiest path. They get to play SMU in cold weather, and then Boise State. Although I feel like what's going to happen is James Franklin is going to blow it against SMU. They're going to build a lead. They're going to go into turtle mode, and SMU is just going to run fast tempo and run plays until they catch back up. And it'll come down to the wire, and something terrible will happen, and Penn State will lose. And then Boise State will beat what's left of SMU and be in the semis. So Penn State should be doing really well, but that's okay. The other one, honestly, Notre Dame's path is not that bad because Indiana is whatever. They can beat Indiana, obviously, if they're healthy. Notre Dame, that is. And then Georgia could win the national championship, but they could also just fall apart because Gunnar Stockton is not up for it. Like his decision making, even in the game against Texas, he almost gave that game away.
Oh, don't talk about it.
And
He didn't.
He tried. And then his like he made the mistake of like the panic throw where it was a picked off by Barron. Then he also made the other kind of youthful mistake where he's like, I'm just gonna run like head up into the end zone from 12 out with headhunters out here. So that wasn't so great either. Drew, I bet you were liking that hit.
Oh, I mean, honestly, the way the defense showed up gave me consolation for the day. Like just breaking and bending bodies in half and putting people out. Like I can do that all day. So that was my consolation. Along with this fifth seed, I guess I'll take. But I'll say this: I agree with you, Ian. That can Georgia be trusted with this broken roster we've left them with? Not necessarily, but I also think as a Texas fan, who am I to say what Georgia can or can't do, regardless of who's lined up? Because we couldn't do anything with what they got. I mean, they got their punter got hurt, backup kick. I mean, doesn't matter. Like Georgia stepped up and did what they needed to do, so they've earned that spot. Now, I do think Notre Dame will be a tough out for Georgia compared to Indiana. Notre Dame knows who they are. They really sound, really good defense. And they just carry as much as you can talk through. Maybe they didn't play who they did or didn't play this year. There's just some trends, and you know who's going to show up when it comes to Notre Dame. We don't know that when it comes to Georgia. So in this side of the bracket, I think you see a Notre Dame and a Penn State, in that Orange Bowl when it's all said and done.
Hey, red and black may be a problem for Notre Dame.
You talking about the Salukis?
Well, the Wolves.
I was
Yeah,
whatever.
Northern Illinois. I was thinking Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quentin, football reasons only. I tried to see the context of that one. Not sure what you were.
I think because you were talking about chip on the shoulder.
I mean, that's what football is.
But Texas better have a chip on their shoulder too. I thought it was
right.
The thing about Arizona State is getting hot right now. They're on a heater. They had two ranked wins, and then they beat the crap out of somebody, and then they just beat the crap out of Iowa State. So they're coming into the playoffs hot. But we'll see. I like Texas's path. I'm not complaining one bit.
Don't forget, Clemson bears the resemblance to like one of those old Bob Stoops Oklahoma teams where they got all these Texas kids they've beefed up and developed that are wanting to come in and beat the Longhorns. So
God. Narratives. Texas has.
Yeah, I don't really care about all of the narratives and psychological stuff. I think everybody you see here, I mean, Georgia, Texas, everyone you see in this college football playoff, just from a player perspective, they have expended and have put everything into this season, started from whenever the offseason was. The narrative doesn't drive how they show up for this playoff at this point. We know who we are. I mean, a narrative wasn't driving Texas and Georgia in the fourth quarter. We looked up and it was 13-13. I mean, that's a new game. You're playing a one-quarter game. All these teams now moving forward, I think it comes down to, of course, matchups, but also, do you know what you're going to show up and do versus are you guessing what you need to show up and do? SMU is probably trying to figure some things out so they can actually go in and win. We're probably trying to figure some things out so we can know if we can go in and win. I don't think Arizona State's guessing of who they are. They're going to show up and do what they would have gotten them to this point. Now they could hit a buzzsaw and realize, oh, this doesn't work anymore. But I'd much rather be in a position where I'm not searching for, can we run the ball? Who's going to be our receivers? I just don't like where we are right now when it comes to our offense and being able to trust it. But I think we'll be fine. I'd just much rather be in some other positions.
Yep. We'll keep on going in just a second, but got to show some love to our other sponsor. That is David McClellan. LC, take it away.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
One thing thinking about this Clemson matchup is PK shut down Garrett Riley with one of his best staffed offenses a couple of years ago in Austin. And PK is just really good at stopping air raid offenses. So that's one thing that has me confident, at least for Texas. But a lot of comments on the offensive side of things, complaining about the offensive line. Says, I hope Sark's telling the offensive line every negative thing he's read or heard about them are soft little marshmallows and can't win in the trenches, light that fire. And that kind of plays into this one from Helio Castillo. Do you think the offensive line should have that same rotation at right guard or keep switching out right guard going forward? I mean, Eric, we thought the offensive line had turned a corner after Georgia, but then they ran into Georgia again. So what's your take on what's next for the offensive line?
It's they're playing Georgia. That's what's next. I mean, that's the reason they're playing Georgia. Nobody had any qualms with O-line play against A&M. A&M's team strength is the defensive line, and Texas pistol whipped them up front. It's just coming up against Georgia. Georgia's superior. The defensive line of Georgia is superior to the Texas offensive line. That's just cut and dried. They're going to have to find workarounds for it. I think for the most part they did, especially in the first half. It wasn't enough to get it done. They didn't capitalize, couldn't kick field goals, didn't do great in the red zone, couple turnovers. So there's ways that Sark can scheme around it. I'm not, I'm just not buying into the, sky's falling. They should have won that game, in my opinion. If they went to play them again, I'm going to pick them a third time. I don't care. That's just the way it is. I think, but yeah, their D line's better than Texas' offensive line, but it's not so bad that it wasn't as bad as the first game, obviously. But yeah, Texas just has to capitalize. They're not making the plays when they're there to be made. That's been a theme throughout the entire season. Games that they should have put away weren't put away. Vanderbilt comes to mind. That A&M should have been a much, much bigger margin. That's the problem. They're not making the plays when they're there. I don't think the offensive line needs any motivation. They know what happened against Georgia, but they also know that they can dominate other teams.
Ian, one of the comments is that lesser offensive line. So I think people look at Georgia Tech and even UMass a little bit and Ole Miss were able to run against Georgia, but Texas wasn't. What's the perspective on that line of thinking from your end?
Well, Georgia Tech ran Haynes King 20 times, and that's a +1 advantage. So if your front four are, a little bit better than Texas's front five, but then Texas got a +1 on almost every play, then it's going to look a lot different. UMass, I've never watched that game. Georgia, I don't think watched UMass before or after, so I wouldn't care about that one. Ole Miss did not run the ball on Georgia. They were just real clever in their passing game, and they had Jackson Dart scrambled. So again, a couple runs like that where Jackson Dart was scrambling. And then they did have one good run early where they caught him. They were running a spread set, threw the ball down to the goal line, and then lined up in 12 personnel with big receivers and caught Georgia totally out of position and ran it down their throats with receivers in the backfield throwing lead blocks. Pretty clever stuff from Lane Kiffin, but did not translate for the rest of the game. Georgia's a tough team to run on. Texas can't really do it. The big question is
they had Arch lined up and then they didn't do it. They worked on it. They built out that package quite a bit. It's not even really a package. It's just he's a quarterback, but then they also have that in there. He can do anything back there. They worked it a lot the week of practice, and I think he only got 2 carries maybe.
One that went through his legs.
Oh yeah, that was an awesome call. So they have a lot more in the tank on that. They just didn't use it for whatever reason. It was kind of curious because we just saw Haynes King basically, kept Georgia Tech in that game, gave Georgia Tech a great chance to win by willing his team running the ball. But for whatever reason, Sark didn't feel like he needed to go that route. Maybe if they play one more time, we'll probably see a lot more because there's nothing next week. You might as well play them and get after it.
It's tough, I think. Sark's really not used to Wildcat really can disrupt the flow of your offense with your quarterback and all that. And I don't think Sark is used to incorporating something like that. Maybe there's something in his past and I'm wrong and they've done that before, but I think that's just not quite in his normal flow. And he said like shortly afterwards that he wished he had done it more already. So
it's one of those things where Sark will tell anybody till he's blue in the face, like, I don't like running the quarterback just because I need that guy to be healthy enough to make throws. But if it's going to be your backup, then there's justifiable argument to say just use him if he's going to be the backup and you'd be a piece.
Can we give this the obvious answer? There's only one very obvious answer for this. They're already in the playoffs. It's not 2023. If it was Alabama versus Georgia and the winner goes to the playoffs, and Georgia was the best team in the country last year for a long stretch but didn't make the playoffs because it was only 4 teams, that's a little bit different. Texas was already in the playoffs.
And we still could have won and should have won.
Right.
Regardless, in spite of that. So, and if we would have won, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right. I don't think they saved anything either. I just think Sark didn't get to all the Arch stuff that he had in the tank because of game context or flow or for whatever reason. It just didn't get to it.
Oh God, this guy's emotional.
It's weak.
And man, what we did should have been enough, regardless of Arch. What we did and the opportunities that were created early in the game, especially getting to the red zone, missing the field goal, not finishing drives, having another tip turnover, all those things early in the game matter. And having a quarterback who can get you a few yards that still doesn't drive the field unless you have a fully built offense around that scheme. So yes, you can do it situationally, but even after a while, they start anticipating it. Either way, that had nothing to do with whether we win or lose. And as a totally separate note to anything related to Arch is going to naturally run in this offense just because that's what his athleticism and his movement in the pocket will enable him to do when he takes on the reins. But the intent is not to have Arch be the running. This is not going to be Sam Ehlinger. And it sounds like where everyone's frustration may be is that we're not using Arch in that way. And I think in order for Arch to even be used that way in an effective way, he has to be the guy in order to make that happen. You just can't bring him in to offset some things and where it just becomes predictable. But it's not. I get why people are asking for it. I mean, because you're not seeing things necessarily beyond just right there. But at the end of the day, Sark and this entire team shouldn't be saying, "Hey, we lost this game because we didn't put a backup quarterback in to get 4 yards in a cloud of dust here and there when we needed it." You need to be able to run an offense to win that game. And we didn't put ourselves in position to do that.
The best way to run the ball as a Texas quarterback in the Sark offense is to put them in man coverage, run verticals, and then just pick up chunks. Yes. We saw Quinn Ewers actually picked up a couple long touchdown runs last year. And if you go back 2020, I was actually surprised by Mac Jones's, somewhat relative to my expectations, athleticism, picking up some yards. But it's because, you got dangerous receivers outside. That's where Arch is really going to kill it.
Can I complain one more time that they got the 4th and 1 situation and Sark thought small and he ran the clever little play to direct snap it to Jaden Blue and they picked up the 4th down. Hooray. Should have been a touchdown. They should have done what I said and run the fake Arch power pop pass or play action bomb and try to score a touchdown there. And that would have been an enormous difference. You got to think, anytime you're in a situation like that, if you're thinking first down, you're thinking too small. You need to be thinking, we have a unique opportunity to score here. Man. We need to freaking score. Sideshow Burt might have missed it anyway. He didn't that time. But I hated that call when it happened. I hated it. It was everything I wanted, and I felt like Sark.
Ian hates first down now.
You let me down first.
I get it, and you call it deep ball down. Even it's funny. Akina used to always like scream it on a first down after a big play or after a sudden change or something like that. Deep ball down to where all hands are on deck. Just don't give up the big play. Like make sure you're on the lookout for any tricks, any of those things. I didn't call it out from that perspective at that time, but you're absolutely right. That was a deep ball down. And we didn't have a deep ball. We didn't have anything we were ready to go to try to take advantage of really the emotional letdown. When you have that 4th down, you give up, the psychology is damn. I got to get back out there and do it again. Yes, you're ready to do it again, but you also you got to catch people while they're psychologically kind of behind schedule. Because then when you run another play to give them the confidence again, they're dialed back in. All right, it's 2nd and long. It's not, now we got 2nd and 10 again. So it's the biggest thing about getting the 4th down is if you can find a creative way to create a big play off of that, you got to take advantage.
I mean, I meant on 4th down.
Oh, you meant on 4th down. You're saying go for the gusto.
Yes, because there's just no better time to take a shot on 4th and 1 because you're going to get press coverage. The safeties are sneaking up. It's all there. But to your point, they could have also just done it. They could have rushed back to the line and run another arch play while Georgia's, moping their heads like, oh, we gave up 1st down. That would have been good too. He didn't do either of those things.
That line of thinking is probably why Alabama's not in the playoffs. Because Diego Pavia did it on 4th and 1, hit that long bomb in the end zone, and one of the key scores that put the Commodores over Alabama. Jamari Chisholm,
Kirby
thank
ran
you
a
for
fake
joining.
punt.
Good to see another Letterman in here. Silas Bolden thoughts. He's easily one of those guys that you look at, Eric, and it's just like, okay, this guy plays about 50 pounds and 5 inches bigger than what he really is.
Yeah, he plays with his hair on fire. He's one of the toughest guys on the team. You have to be tough to be that size. But I mean, it's uncanny. He got the crap knocked out of him. He takes like 3 steps backwards and revs right up and goes forward again. Just incredibly tough and wiry strong. Every time he's on the field, something happens. Almost all the time, it's good. The play against OU was one of the plays of the year for me, and just embodies everything that he's about: toughness, heart, athleticism. Hopefully, they get him more involved. I love the guy. I think we're going to see some big plays out of him. His career's winding down. He can't come back. I think we're going to see something special out of him before it's all said and done.
He's been the volatility of the punt return has very much trended in Texas' favor over the course of the past few weeks. And it's a lot of it's thanks to Silas. That's one of the special teams' bright spots, I would say. So, Jamari, thanks for watching. Status on Kelvin Banks. They're not practicing right now. I think they're off to Wednesday. They're gonna be very tight-lipped about that. I don't think we get any more injury reports. But
what do you mean official injury reports? You're
correct.
Texas,
Yeah.
Joe, so you know what's up to date. Goodness gracious, dude. We'll know what's up before they suit up. We knew he wasn't going to play this past week. We let off an article with need a big game out of Trevor Gooseby. That was a statement of fact. We knew that Trevor Gooseby was going to start. So yeah, Inside Texas readers will know in advance. Kelvin Banks, they're not going to practice him till next week. There's no need to practice him right now. We probably won't know till Wednesday of next week.
Like this super chat from AR, and Ian, it'll go your way. Towards the end of the game and into overtime, Sark dialed up several low percentage fade routes. I think one was to Wingo and one was to Moore. What do you think the thought process behind it was? Personally, I didn't mind the Wingo one, but DeAndre Moore's kind of been up and down on tracking deep passes throughout his career at Texas. So I'm curious what your thoughts on this one were.
Yeah, you're talking like the slot fade in overtime.
Slot fade was to Moore.
In, out. It's like a corner route. It's almost like a fade.
And then the other one was to Golden, actually, now that I think of it.
Yeah, they threw a bunch throughout the game. I mean, that's the deep pass that Quinn is showing the most comfort in. They got some shots on it because Georgia played a lot of man high and quarters in those shots on the fades. The one-on-one balls were there. He hit guys in the end zone in the hands or in the body on fade routes like 2 or 3 times without coming up with a touchdown over the course of the game. He had that one to Wingo before the end of the game there was an opportunity there. I mean, what do you want him to do? They're trying to score. They need to score. If they don't, they can kick the field goal and go into overtime. What else do you do to try to score but to find where your one-on-one shot is and try to make a play? They didn't make a play.
And then, low percentage. I mean, didn't we just get done talking about how the run game failed over and over? Like, got to find ways to move the ball somehow. There are a lot of comments about Sark's play calling.
They're not running the ball well. Nobody is a good
Yeah.
play caller when they're not running the ball. You know, it was funny. Go back the week before, Mike Elko, everybody said he was a terrible play calling. They got beat up physically. They couldn't do anything. There are no play calls when you're losing the physical battle. Sark, when Sark has balance through the run game, he's a brilliant play caller. It doesn't fluctuate week to week. You're not a great play caller one week and bad the next. You have physical advantages that aren't working in your favor that make it tough for those play calls to work.
The one thing that I did think is worth criticism is that the series that set up the interception, you ran it up the middle you tried to run a power with Wisner, didn't work. You run a play action off that power with Wisner with a pulling guard who is your backup or 6-man, and then you have Ewers drop back on 3rd and 12. That I think was one of the worst play calling stretches of Sark's tenure in Austin, and they had Gunnar Stockton bail them out. But you know, there's always going to be, as Sandman mentions, there's going to be nitpicking in hindsight. But there were some times when, even with that bad run game, I don't feel like Sark recognized that it was going that poorly and still tried to ram his head against the wall a little bit. We'll get a couple more in here. Any reason why Jarrett Gibson isn't getting touches? Is it because of fumbling issues?
Yes.
He's out there playing. Yeah, might as well use him. They used him a little bit in 31 personnel, right, Ian?
Well, they don't have anybody else to use in 31.
Yes, they did. They did do that for reasons I don't understand. That series that you're describing bothered me less than that stupid 31 personnel play they ran, where it was like fake sweep one direction and then a late handoff on a sweep into the boundary. Drew, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Sark got a little lost in his bag on that one.
No, it's when you think you can show up and be your new identity, and you realize that's not working when it comes to being physical up front and getting yards, just running the standard run game. And you go back to some of that. That's what you go back to. So it didn't shock me that we went that route. We're just looking for an edge. When you're looking for an offense, you're not moving the ball the way you want to, or the way you've been able to move the ball once you got off of your script at the beginning of the game. Yeah, you just start searching for things and seeing where you can find some chunks. And I mean, I don't love it, but what else? I don't know what else Sark could have made happen. But I'm with you. There was a lot that Eric's right. There's a lot we just didn't get done, and hat tip to Georgia too, because they didn't play any less good than they played the last time when it came to defense. Now we executed better. We just didn't finish when we should have in the red zone. So, yeah, we can all look at that game and say, all right, Georgia's D-line defense, they showed up the same way they did the first time. We actually just did a better job of weathering the storm and being able to find ways around them. We just weren't putting the ball in the end zone.
Quinn played better too. Quinn played a lot better.
There's a lot of
people beat up, and I don't get it. I think Quinn played fine.
There's a lot of team failure stuff. Like, I could clip 5 plays from that game where it's like, what was Sark thinking with this play call? I could clip 5 plays where it's like, hey, look, Sark got a guy wide open and Quinn didn't see him. Quinn didn't get to him. I could clip 5 plays where it's like, hey, look, Quinn threw a dime and hit a guy and he was dropped. Or Quinn had a guy and he was about to hit it and Cameron Williams got pushed into his face or whatever. They just got beat, right? I mean, that's what we're all saying, basically. They got beat.
I think one good thing to end on might be this one, and looking forward to a lot of different storylines with Clemson and Texas, but Cade Klubnik versus Quinn Ewers again.
There's a big difference here. This is a massive difference. This time, Ewers has the better team. Cade had it. Wasn't even close that Cade's team, Westlake team, was better than South Lake Carroll. Wasn't even close. South Lake Carroll shouldn't even made the state championship game that year. They had so much turnover on offense. I think Ewers was the only returning player on that entire offense, as a matter of fact. And Westlake was fantastic. And, of course, Michael Taft had the famous pick of Quinn. But this time the Rapids got the gun. It's Quinn this time. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe, I know that Quinn took that loss pretty hard. He's got a chance to exercise that one.
He was real beat up in that game too.
Yep.
And Westlake had, right? I think they had Burke and Vosick, right?
Yep.
They had
Brady
Great
Boyd.
House. Great House. Wait, who?
Well, they had
Boyd.
Great House. It seemed like
Or
they
no,
had
he
Great
went
House for 5
to
years.
South Lake.
Yeah, Boyd was a Dragon. They had that Westlake team was stacked. I remember seeing the point spread. I didn't even know they had point spreads in high school games before that. And Westlake was favored by like 7 or 9 points or something. It was, yeah.
That was a fun game to go to. I was in the AT&T Stadium for that one, and you could just kind of tell, like Eric said, the better team was on its way to a victory, but the player in Quinn could not overcome.
Connor Robertson.
I think that was like Robertson, Shanahan,
Yeah.
who just entered the portal.
They
There
had
were a
another
few.
dude. They had another dude that I think has ended up starting in like Oklahoma State or Hayden Bray.
Yeah, Westlake was the what do you play? H-back, tight end, defensive end for them.
Cowboy back.
Yeah, they were just outmatched. But
They were
all right, I got to get to work.
Yep, that'll be it. Thank you for watching this show. Make sure you head to InsideTexas.com, get all the portal info, all the playoff info, all the everything info. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning. I think we got Paul on tomorrow. And then we'll also have recruiting intel with me, Charlie, and Justin. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.